My God gon' apply that pressure. Blessings in good measure, press it down, shaking together. Jesus pull me up, my cup running over. Got that blessing. Holy Spirit, all in my temple. Carry that word of a vessel. Trying that spirit, I'm attention. Everything from the Lord is the devil. Blessings in good measure, press it down, shaking together. Jesus pull me up, my cup running over. Got that blessing. Holy Spirit, all in my temple. Carry that word of a vessel. Trying that spirit, I'm attention. Everything from the Lord is the devil.
Peace, everybody tuning in to another edition to hashtag Not Your Sunday Service. And the lesson or conversation we'll be having today is faith, the evidence of things not seen. And of course, this title was pulled from where we're going to go to later on in the lesson in Hebrews 11. But it's important to have conversations like this. It's funny because any conversation pertaining to the Word of God is an important conversation, right? But ultimately, when it comes to faith, that is the foundation of your walk. That is your foundation of your understanding on the Word. That is the premise on everything else going on in terms of your relationship with the Lord. And so when we going through this life, ultimately, one thing that I have learned is that when you're dealing with God, especially the God of this Bible, like there's really no other gods, right? Even Paul says it in First Corinthians that you may have idols, you may have celebrations and festivals and practices pertaining to other gods, but at the end of the day, them gods are not real. But when you're dealing with the God of this Bible, he calls himself the true and living God. This is an actual person. There's an actual being who is alive, who thinks. Like you read in Psalms 86 how it says that he's gracious, he has compassion, he's long suffering. This is a real person that you are establishing a relationship with. And I bring that up because sometimes, we have to bring things back to a human level just to understand that it's not that deep. If you really want the Lord, if you want to see God in your life, it requires that you believe in him. That's how God operates. All he's asking, and we're going to see in this lesson as well, just the faith of a mustard seed. Because, I can understand, if you just finding out about God or you just trying to give him a chance, right? There's so much information out in this world that it can cause you to be basically desensitized, right? Or just numb to all this information about this, religion, this God, that God, all this information out here. It can desensitize you and cause you to go numb. But then you decide, hey, I'm going to give Jesus a chance. Well, honestly, you need to give Jesus a chance because your salvation lies in him. But ultimately, it doesn't mean that you're going to have just a full body of faith out the gate. Like it tell you in Psalms chapter 34, it says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. You just taste, just give it a try. And again, I'm not begging nobody to serve him. Ultimately, it's in your best interest that you serve him. But ultimately, if you're giving him a try, if you're seeking the Lord, yeah, it starts somewhere. And typically it's going to start small. But again, it starts with your faith. It starts with you having to visualize that God is who he is, that whatever you seeking him about, he can answer it. And even if you have just the smallest amount of faith, when you start in this relationship with the Lord, he's going to acknowledge that, whether big or small, because God is the type of God who's going to prove himself. He's going to reveal himself to you so that you have proof that when you decided to put faith in him, when you decide to believe that he will do exactly what you asked for, that he will respond. He will show you by answering that prayer, by answering that request. And then now he's building a case, because that's how the Lord operates. He's building a case, trial after trial, deliverance by deliverance. He's building a case and building a resume with you so that as you continue to grow and you have to experience even more, more difficult things in life, because it starts off small, something else may come up that'll be even more difficult, whatever it may be. You can look back on what he did on the past and say, oh, well, the Lord did this for me. The Lord did that for me. I asked him about this. He brought it to pass for me. So that way, that faith is now being strengthened. That faith is now being established. But it don't start out that way. It starts out with you just simply petitioning the Lord with a little faith, or however much faith you have to begin with. So let's go over to our first part, which is James chapter 1. James chapter 1, because this faith thing, it's a process. And instead of us concerning ourselves with, and we can have all kinds of thoughts. We could be thinking to myself, well, what if God doesn't hear me? What if I've done so much damage, or I'm just so far gone that the Lord couldn't hear me? Well, ultimately, honestly, we have to be able to put those thoughts aside and stick to what the Bible says. Because again, the Lord is that long suffering individual. He is that compassionate person. He is that gracious person. And let's start at verse 4. What's that say?
But let patience have a perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing.
So it says, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. And why are we going here? Because faith and patience, they're gonna coincide with one another, because you have to first and foremost believe that the Lord is going to do something, and then you have to have the patience in order to see it come to pass. That's how it is with the Lord. It says right here, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Because he's gonna answer that. He can answer that prayer. He can check off every single box. Everything that you're going to, he can turn that thing around, give you a complete 180, and put you on an upward trajectory. But it's going to require that patience, because you may not see the finished product or the deliverance at the very beginning. It's literally just like, you go and get a job, and in your mind you're like, oh, well, this is a good paying job. I got a salary. I'm expecting to get, $5,000 a month. And guess what? You start working those first 30 days, you don't see any kind of income, but you're going to work every single day, right? Except the Sabbath, right? You rest on the Sabbath, but you go to work when you're supposed to. And then when it's time for that check, it's coming. And guess what? It's going to be there, because that's how man operates. So how much greater is it to be working in a life that's towards salvation and for God, where he's giving you checks really consistently? Hey, the fact that you have breath of life to hear my voice, to wake up and see the things around you, to have your senses, hey, he giving you all kind of paychecks. But ultimately, for you to see the things that the Lord has to offer you, it requires that patience. And that patience is going to be you exhibiting your faith long term, because you're waiting and allowing the Lord to do what he needs to do. And you're not fainting in the meantime. You're not complaining or murmuring or just saying, oh, no, he's not going to do it. No, you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to wait on the Lord. That's why it says, let patience have her perfect work, that you may be entire, you may be perfect and entire, and ultimately wanting nothing. Right? Verse 5.
If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him.
Again, we may think to ourselves, and it's funny because, like it said, I think it's 1 John 3, around like verse 20, verse 21, where it says, if our hearts condemn us, well, God is greater than our hearts. And why am I bringing that up? Because we may feel as though, oh, there's no redemption for me. There's no me seeking God. I'm just too far left field. I'm just a screw up, whatever it may be. But ultimately, you have those thoughts. Ultimately, they really come from Satan. Satan is trying to by any means necessary, create this separation between you and God. Because as long as that separation is there, hey, you on his team. So you have to just read the word and believe it for what it says. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. Not, if you ain't never done no dirt in your life, if you never experienced any trauma in your life. No, this is an absolute statement. It's saying, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, not just some. It's those who are coming to him, coming with them with some humility. It's a humbling experience to come before God and ask. But that's what the Lord is looking for. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, meaning freely. That's what liberally means, right? You have in politics, you have your conservatives, you have your liberative, your liberals, your conservatives. The conservative, they're a little bit more reserved, right? They have principles to where they're not gonna just do any and everything. Your liberals, they want you to be more wild. You don't want to be necessarily told what to do, but guess what? When it comes to the wisdom of God, he's liberal with it. He is willing to give it to all men freely. The problem is that the majority of the world don't want to listen to God. The majority of the world does not want the counsel of God, so they reject it. But for those who are seeking it, it says that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not. He ain't trying to hold back nothing, but it's all going to be predicated on your faith. So it says that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Verse 6.
But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed.
So we're seeing here, it says, but let him ask in faith. See, when you are petitioning the Lord, you need to believe that you'll be able to receive that thing, whatever it may be. Whether it be you got a sickness you're dealing with, you may be in grade school, you may be in school, you got a test you got to deal with, you may have a job you're trying to get. Everybody's experienced life in their own individual way, but God is still answering prayers across the board, and he's got the wisdom, he's got the reward to hand out to anybody who's seeking out to him. It says, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. So you have to be convinced in your mind that God is going to do what you're asking him to do. That's what it's saying right here. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For what?
For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed.
See, you can't be, and it's funny, whenever I read this, I think about, young guys back in the day, when the Migos was really, really popular. They would talk about you being wishy-washy. You can't be all over the place with your faith, saying, oh, well, he can do it, but no, he can't really do it. Oh, no, I think he can do it. Oh, no, I don't think he can do it. Like, no, you have to be fully convinced. You have to be settled in your mind that what you're asking him to do, he's going to do it, because he can. Because again, when you're dealing with the God of this Bible, you're dealing with the creator. You're dealing with the one who put everything in existence. You're telling me, like it tell you in Psalms 104, that he spread it out the heavens like a curtain. He caused the earth to hang on nothing, right? And you look in Genesis, in the creation, he took all the waters, he put them into one place, he split them up. And then you had your heaven. He took this ball of water at the bottom, caused dry land to appear, caused the sun and moon to come into place. He caused the herbs of the field to grow. He brought animals out of the dirt. He made man out of dirt, breathed into his nostrils life. He'd do all these things, right? But he can't heal you of your infirmity. He can't restore your mind when you're dealing with something mentally. We have to realize how much power we have when we're dealing with the true and living God. And if we're willing to do that and be convinced in our mind, he will answer. It says, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. Verse 7.
For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord.
Because just as God is fair, and he's saying, hey, if you want to believe in me, I'll give you what you asked for. God is also on the same energy saying, hey, but if you're not willing to believe in me, don't even ask, because you're not going to get it. God, that's God's transparency there. That's him being completely upfront with you. Go over to Hebrews chapter 11. We're going to look at that a little bit more when we go over there. But he says, for let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. So you have to be fully convinced that when you are petitioning the Lord and asking what you're needing from him, that he can do it. But if you not want to believe, don't even ask. But the point is, he wants you to ask. The point is, he wants you to believe. That's why, like we're going to see later in the lesson, he's talking about having just a faith the size of a mustard seed. He don't need much. He just wants to see that, hey, you have that mindset to actually want to believe that he can do what you're asking of him. And he'll do it. Because again, the Lord is in the business of proving himself. The Lord is in the business of building that resume, building you up with one deliverance after another, one answered prayer after another. So then you can become, it's like, I remember back in the day when my daughter was younger, this may sound a little crazy, but I didn't like her to have fear of certain things. So I would do little things just to challenge her. And so I'd be like, hey, jump off of this step. Because I got steps in my house. I said, jump off of this step. Daddy's going to catch you. It'd be a little step, maybe 2 steps up. She'll jump. It's nothing. 4 steps up. She jump. It's nothing. We get to the 6th step. Now she's thinking about it. Well, he's really going to catch me? I was like, well, baby girl, I caught you at the 2 steps. I caught you at the 4 steps. I'm going to catch you again at the 6th. You're going to be okay. But I wanted to eliminate that fear and doubt in her mind. This may sound crazy. Yeah, I don't care. It works, right? And so eventually, because that one she really struggled with, and eventually she just decided to jump. She did it, and I caught her. But once I caught her, it flipped a switch in her mind to be like, oh, I can do this. He's gonna catch me. So guess what? She just be jumping off of Daddy, catch me. And she's even bigger now, so she's heavier. I'm gonna still catch her. But it's the Lord proving himself. I had to prove to her, hey, I got you. And now it builds that confidence in trusting in God. Because he did it before, he'd do it again. But again, before you see the deliverance, before you see it all come to pass, it starts with that faith right out the gate to believe, hey, okay, he can actually do this. And then you're going to see the end result of it. But Hebrews 11 and verse 1, what's that say?
Verse 11. Hebrews 11, verse 1.
Yeah.
Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
So it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I think about, you read verse, and it says, for by it the elders obtained a good report. Read in verse 3, it talks about how, through faith we understand that the things that you see in the world, right, it was framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. And I think about the fact that, like, for example, I got this comb right here, right? Something as simple as a comb. Nobody pulled a comb out of the dirt and say, hey, I've got a comb. Instead, somebody had to visualize in their mind and say, okay, if I put this element with this element and this component here, and I do X, Y, and Z, I can create this item, right? They had to visualize it in their mind first and foremost, and then that moved them to be able to create that thing. The same thing, please, Brother Cam, the same thing applies to your faith in God. See, it's the substance in terms of you don't see what the end result is physically. You have to visualize it. You come into the Lord, you saying, Lord, I need you to heal me. And we're going to see multiple examples of that. You believe that you can be healed. It's a possibility. This is a realistic thing. Yes, I can be healed. The Lord is able to take this infirmity off of me, whatever it may be. And if you have that out the gate, then that is the substance. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's not here tangibly, but it can be. You just have to be able to visualize it up front. And you may not even be able to visualize it to the capacity that God can see it, because the Lord's healing is 10 times, a lot of times, 10 times greater than what you even imagine it. But again, that's why you have to have that faith of a mustard seed. You just see that little bit of substance in your mind, and guess what? It's going to sprout into something beautiful. It's going to sprout into the deliverance that you're looking for. But jump down to verse 6. What's that say?
But without faith, it is impossible to please him.
So back to where we saw in James chapter 1, the writer of Hebrews basically in the same vein. Hey, but if you're going to ask him, you got to ask in faith, not wavering. The person who's operating that way, it's like the sea, like the waves of the sea tossed to and fro. Let him not think he'll receive anything of the Lord, because you having that faith is what pleases the Lord. I was talking to a couple brothers yesterday about this topic in terms of faith is like a currency. It's something that you use, and just imagine if God had a store and on the shelves he had deliverance for sale, but he's not going to have actual money. It's the faith that you will use in exchange for what you're asking for. But if you come in there with no money, like, what you doing here? But with faith, it is impossible to please him. But for he that cometh to God must what?
For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
For he that cometh to God must believe that he is first and foremost, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. That faith is your currency. In exchange for that faith, he is going to reward you. He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. That's your currency right there. You want to see the Lord do exactly what you asked of him? Have that faith. That is what you're given in exchange. That is why you read it it's in the book of Matthew. I don't know exactly where, but I think he was actually in Galilee, because that's where he was brought up, the Nazareth area. He was brought up in that area, and he was trying to perform miracles, but because there was no faith, he couldn't perform. It's not like he was doing anything different than he was doing in the other areas. He always was healing. But because they didn't have faith, they didn't have no currency. There was nothing to give in exchange for the miracles that he was performing. Because without faith, it is impossible to please him. So you need that faith. That is your substance. That is your currency. That's what you give in exchange to God. He's going to take that faith and he's going to reward you for it. He's going to answer that prayer. He's going to do exactly what you're asking of him. And he's going to, no matter how small it is, he's going to work with that and build that up so you can be established and trust in the Lord. Like I grew up, my mom would read that, she'd be doing hour-long prayers. My mom would be praying for like forever. I'd be sleeping. But she always ended her prayer with that Psalms 34 verse. I'll never forget that. She taste and see that the Lord is good. Just give it, just taste it, just see for yourself. And it says, blessed is the man who trusted him. Because you're going to see what you was hoping for. It is exactly that and more. But it requires that you have faith. Let's go over to our next spot, which is Mark chapter 9. Mark 9, we're going to read a few verses here. Verses 23 through 24. It's referring to a father. He had a son with a dumb spirit. And he was dealing with this spirit since he was a child. And so he brought that child to Jesus. And he was like, hey, he'd be going in the fire. He'd be dealing with this and that. And the Lord is like, and the man is like, listen, just have compassion on us. Help us. Like, Psalm 86 is a really good psalm where it says the Lord is, I think verse 5 and verse 15, but it says he's full of compassion, right? Full of grace, long suffering. So he's looking for you to ask these things, and he's going to respond accordingly. So this individual's coming to Jesus, and he's like, help me. And this is what Jesus says in response, verse 23.
Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth.
See, that's all it requires. It just requires that faith. If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believe. That's all you have to do. If you're gonna ask for something, right? Ask in faith, nothing wavering. You have to be convinced in your mind. And even if, again, maybe a new thing for you, start small. The Lord is going to work with a little bit and grow it into something bigger. But he says, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believe, because you're talking to the one who's the real God. Again, all these other religions, it's distractions, it's smokescreen, it's snares of Satan to pull you away from the one who really is behind the scenes, is Jesus. So if this guy is the one who created everything and is in control of all things, like we did a lesson last week talking about, from the kingdoms of men to God's, the Lord rules. He even rules in the kingdoms of men. He's the one really pulling the strings and running things. So you have access to that as long as you're willing to believe. And he's the one who bends reality at his will. Why? Because reality is created by him. So Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. But this individual going to tell you about where his faith is currently. Verse 24, what's that say?
And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief.
And you can go to the Lord about that. Wherever you are on the spectrum of faith, hey, he's saying here, and straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief. Wherever it's at, the Lord he gonna work with you. Again, just like my daughter, think about it. She was all good at 2 steps. She was all good at 4 steps. You got the 6 steps all of a sudden. I don't know if I can do this. But with time, she decided to trust. And I don't know if she fully convinced that, I'm a catcher, but hey, she decided to have some form of faith, and she acted and she jumped. And guess what? I caught her. As a matter of fact, right here, if you jump down to, or if you just read the next verse, 25, what's that say?
When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him and enter no more into him.
Hey, he cast that devil out of him. It was nothing to Jesus. See, these problems we be dealing with is nothing to God. We just have to be willing to believe. Let's go to our next part, which is Matthew chapter 9. Wherever you are on the spectrum, whether great or small, the Lord is going to work with you and build you up. It all starts with you choosing and making the decision and saying, I do believe. Matthew 9, we're going to pick it up at verse 20. Another example of a woman looking to be healed, dealing with the issue of blood for a long time. And this is what she said within herself. Verse 20, what's that say?
And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years,
Wow.
came behind him and touched the hem of his garment.
Why?
For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole.
See, that's that faith. That's that substance, right? That's that faith of that's that substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. She got the issue of blood. Matter of fact, she had it for 12 years. You read in another place, it talks about how she spent all kinds of money going to this physician, going to that physician, and nothing could work. And you would think, man, after year 2, man, this is just it for me. After year 3, after year 4, 5, 6. Now it'd been 12 years, and she see Jesus. She heard about what's going on with him. Oh, all I need to do is touch his garment. I don't even need no theatrical kind of experience. I just know what she said, for she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. See, that again, that is the substance of things hoped for. That is the currency. In exchange for her faith, what happened in verse 22? What does that say?
But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour.
That was the exchange. That was her currency. In exchange for that faith, he rewarded her. Why? Because like we saw in Hebrews 11 and verse 6, he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That's all you got to do. You just got to have some faith. And just as this woman was dealing with the issue of blood for 12 years, she said within herself, if I could touch his garment, that 12 years is going to be a thing of the past. She believed that. Nothing wavering. She was convinced in her mind. And we got to do the same thing. Whatever it may be that we're dealing with, hey, the Lord is who we can petition to, and he will answer that prayer as long as we believe. And that's why he says right here, but Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Because of what you believed that could come to pass, I'm rewarding you accordingly. And the woman was made whole from that hour immediately. All right, let's go over to our second to last spot, which is Numbers. Because as we're looking at this conversation, it can go both ways. We saw, if you don't believe, hey, don't even ask. And we're going to read about the children of Israel, unfortunately. But the children of Israel, they were going to inherit the promised land. And he sent out 12 people, according to the 12 tribes of Israel, to go and spy out the land. And matter of fact, read verse 27. They came back, they spied it out for 40 days, and this was the report. Verse 27.
And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it flowed with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it.
So exactly what you talked about, Lord, is just that. And they told him and said, We came into the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it flows with milk and honey. And this is the fruit of it. You know, everything you talked about, that land is great. But even though they saw what the Lord could give them, they feared the people, the inhabitants of the land. Matter of fact, jump down to verse 30. And we're going to get into that because of those 12 people, 2 of them said, "Nah, we good. We good." Let me correct myself. I don't think that they may have been the 12, but you have Caleb and Joshua, basically. They get the report is being made. Instead of trying to instill fear in the people, Joshua and Caleb is trying to keep the energy like, nah, let's go seize this land. This is our opportunity. Hey, God helped us get out of Egypt. He put a smackdown on Pharaoh. Guess what? It's our time to now go seize this land. We serving the same God. Let's go. They was ready. They had the faith that the Lord was going to give them exactly what he said he was going to give them. Verse 30, what's that say?
And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it.
Because again, these people, the other people, they were trying to instill fear. They had the doubt. They lacked the belief that they could get the land because of the inhabitants of the land. Mind you, the Lord, they serving the same God. When they were in Egypt in the land of Goshen, he had light in Goshen and darkness in Egypt, where Pharaoh and his people were. How you do that? Turn the sea to blood, turn the river to blood, right? Have locusts going out and about, have frogs going out and about, having all these things. killing all the firstborn in Egypt who didn't have blood, in the houses of those who didn't have blood over their doorposts. This is the same guy who parted the Red Sea, doing all these things, but then now you come into a land and people just bigger than you, and now you fearful. So because they're instilling that fear, Caleb, and Joshua, they had to still the people, like it says right here. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. We got this, because the one who's fighting your battle is the Lord. He is the one who's going to give you this land. Verse 31.
But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we.
Go ahead.
And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature.
They have no faith. Mind you, the Lord has been proving himself time and time again. That's what really upset God about the children of Israel. You've seen what I've done to other people for you. Why is it that you can't believe that I can do this right here? That was a constant issue between God and the children of Israel. It wasn't that God was too hard on them. It's that Israel just didn't want to believe and trust in God. And it was to their detriment time and time and time and time again. But it says over here, and they brought up an evil report of the land, right? They didn't have no faith. Then in their mind, they're fully convinced, oh, God can't solve this. Instead of being convinced that God can deliver them and give them the land, they're fully convinced that God is not going to redeem, is not going to give us this land. It says, and they brought up an evil report of the land which he had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. Let's go over to chapter 14. Basically, hey, these people are giants, is what they describe in verse 33. These people are giants. We're like grasshoppers in the sun. What does that matter? What does that matter? You was just a slave and he freed you from one of the greatest nations at that time. So what if they taller than you? You don't think the Lord can't do what he's... See, Caleb and Joshua, they believed. And we're going to see how the Lord responds to the faith that's being displayed by these people. Numbers 14, we'll pick it up at verse 22. When you get there, go ahead and read, please.
Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice. Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoke me see it.
You know, there's a saying that I heard some time ago. It says, there's two people in this world. People will say you can, and people will say you can't. And the crazy part is they're both right, because it's all based on your faith. If you believe something is not possible, you're right. It will not come to pass for you. At the same time, if you believe it can come to pass, then like we saw Jesus say in Matthew 9, it says, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. So these people here who chose not to believe, he said, because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, y'all seen all these things I've done. Matter of fact, when you was walking during the day, you had a cloud over you, and at night there was a pillar of fire, just being with you, protecting you, preserving you, giving you, raining down bread from heaven, making sure y'all was straight. Manna. Right? He was raining down manna from heaven, making sure y'all was straight. And have tempted me now these 10 times and have not hearkened to my voice. Even after all that, you still being stiff-necked. surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoke me see it. Because you want to have such little faith and you're choosing not to believe, all right, I got you. I got you. Since you don't, because ultimately you saying you're not going to get it, well, guess what? You're right. You aren't going to get it. Verse 24.
But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and had followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereinto he went, and his seed shall possess it.
Because the Lord is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Right? Without faith, it's impossible to please God. And they weren't pleasing God because they lacked faith. But Caleb, Joshua's in this as well. You read it in these chapters. Joshua, he talks about him as well. Guess what? Because he had faith. And because they had faith, it says, but my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and had followed me fully. Right? He's doing what he's supposed to do and believing that the Lord can do what he said he's going to do. Him will I bring into the land whereunto he went, and his seed shall possess it. And the crazy thing is, it even went to the extent of how they were murmuring against God, saying, oh, you brought us out here. Our children, hey, we going to have to see them die out here. We were straight in Egypt. And the Lord's like, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm gonna take this even further. Everybody that's 20 and upward, y'all going to die in this wilderness. For each day y'all spied out the land, which was 40 days, it's going to be a year. You're going to have to circle around in this land. Because from where they were to the promised land, it wasn't that far. It doesn't take 40 years. But he let them sit there and marinate for them 40 years to kill off that old generation, right? Dying of old age, whatever it may be. Let them die off. You're not going to see this promised land. But the children you said that weren't going to be able to see it, I was going to let them die in the wilderness. Guess what? I'm going to let them see it. Because faith is the evidence of things not seen. You don't have no faith. Guess what? You're not going to get what you're asking for. Matter of fact, you turned it down. You said, oh, nah. Yeah, the land is great, but the people there, nah, we grasshoppers in their side. We can't get this. You're right. You won't get this. So you have to have that faith. We see in both sides of the spectrum. When you have faith, you can be like Caleb and Joshua, who are going to end up inheriting the land. But when you choose not to have faith, you're going to be like everybody else, not inheriting it. But let's go over to our last part, which is Matthew chapter 17. Matthew 17 and verse, we're going to get about verse 18. This is another example of somebody with, son was a lunatic, vexed with the devil, and they brought him to his disciples, to Jesus' disciples, and they couldn't cast him out. But they decided to bring that same individual over to Jesus. Matter of fact, read verse 17. What's that say? Jesus starts snapping on him. What did he say?
Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me.
Man, bring him over here. You guys, oh, faithless and perverse generation. How long shall I be with you? How long shall I bring him hither to me? You ain't got the, you lack the faith to heal this person. Man, bring him over here. Verse 18.
And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him. And the child was cured from that very hour.
Again, that was nothing to God. In every circumstance, every situation, every issue that you're dealing with, it's nothing to God. He can deal with it and mind you, that's why we started in James 1. You got to have patience and be willing to see it come to pass, because he's going to do it on his terms, on his time. But ultimately, it's nothing to God to fix whatever you asking for him to fix, answer whatever prayer you're asking him. And it says, and Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Verse 19.
Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out?
Why couldn't we do it, Jesus? Jesus gonna let them know, verse 20.
And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you.
That's ultimately what this lesson is about.
It's amazing.
Wherever you are on the spectrum of faith, use that. That's your currency. If you got $1, put a dollar towards the pot. You got $2, $3, whatever it may be. Give that to the Lord and have faith. That's your currency. In exchange for what you're asking for, this is what you're giving. It says, because of your unbelief, you couldn't cast him out. But if you have the faith, you could have done it. Just like Peter, he was in the process of, he was walking on water, literally walking on water. And because he got distracted by his surroundings, and the water, he started messing up with his steps. Water got unstable. Guess what? Now he's having that doubt and that fear. He's sinking. Why'd you doubt? You was doing it. But it's because of his unbelief, he was no longer able to walk on it at that present time. But it was the faith that allowed him to do it. Because he said, Lord, if it's you, bid me to walk on the water. And he said, walk on the water. Boom. There you go. There's your faith right there. He exchanged it, got exactly what he asked for. He started walking on the water. Now, these disciples right here, they couldn't cast out the devil. But if they had that faith, in exchange, they would have been able to cast out that devil. That's why he says, and Jesus said unto him, because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard, you just need a little bit, and God is going to work with that. He's going to exercise that faith to give you what you're looking for and start building this foundation of trust and belief in him. And it says right here, ye shall say to this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove. Exactly what you ask for is going to come to pass. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. But faith, the evidence of things not seen. I pray you got some understanding in Jesus' name. Peace.
Surrounded by my enemies, preaching lost my limb of faith, saying the strength in the hand of sin, talking about we under grace, got no time for no fake, had to get up out of church, don't wanna burn in the lake, cause breaking the law and get you murked, see the truth, yeah, hurt, living tradition, I had to wrestle, all my members were given the sin, it's time to use me as your vessel, filled with the spirit, ain't in the word, know that it's coming straight from the devil, gotta hold tight, looking for the blessing, press it down, shaking
My God
together.
gon' apply that pressure. Blessings ain't good measure, press it